Okay, we're recording live.
Thanks everybody for stopping by. Our guest today for over almost 20 years has been working in purpose-driven organizations to make big change in the world. He is currently the CEO of Hollyhock, a nonprofit dedicated to personal and professional development, making a community pushing towards solutions for a better future. Speaking of better future, if you're ever in Whistler, BC, check out Creekside Health, better health together. Also, the Pelly Clinic in North Van. Focus on your body's innate potential to live life of total wellness. But without further ado, Peter Rinch, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Peter. How are you doing today, man?
Pretty good, Devin. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, it's a great day. Sitting here on Bowen Island in British Columbia. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, we're all very fortunate. We're all here on the West Coast in BC, and I'm in North Vancouver, Devin's in Richmond, and Peter's on Bowen Island. So
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
pretty cool. And how we start the show here is, drum roll please, is we we do what's called two truths and a lie. So we have our guest. He's given us two truths about himself and one fib, one lie. And Dev and I are going to have to guess what that is. So, number one, you ready, Dev?
Let's go.
Okay. So, number one is I was once detained by police and accused of starting a riot at a Moscow soccer game. It's like, come on.
Oh,
That's like, we've had a bunch of people with good ones. That's a really good one.
that's a really good one.
That next one, and this one, yeah, this is good. In the early 2000s, I was an amateur pro surf team. I was on an amateur pro surf team in Japan.
Oh, damn.
Which is, yeah, it's plausible too, because I know something. I know you lived in Japan for quite a while.
Tricky.
Yeah, and I know you like to surf too. Okay. Number three, my undergraduate degree is in Zen Buddhism and Soviet history.
What?
Some Russian connections going on here, man. If this was in the 50s, I think you'd probably be in trouble. This is really cool. Oh man.
It's tough, guys. It's tough.
That is a tough one. Yeah.
Gee. So, Dev, what are you thinking here?
I don't know. I think that the first one's just so specific. It's got to be true. Getting detained at a Moscow soccer game, starting a riot. Okay, and then what do we have? The surfing in Japan, and then degree in Zen Buddhism and Soviet history. Just ties them all together, man. I don't know. That's tough. Let's just let's just shoot for let's go for number three.
Number three
is maybe it's
the undergraduate
and something else. I don't know.
Could be, yeah. I know you surf. So I'm gonna say number three as well. The undergraduate in Zen Buddhism and Soviet history. Yeah. Okay.
Guys, this is such a fun way to start a podcast. I love it. Really great. So you're wrong.
What?
So my undergrad from McGill University is in Zen Buddhism and Soviet history. It's basically a double major.
Oh my gosh.
But no, the lie, and I've played this game before. The lie is number two. And here's the thing, is I was asked to be on an amateur surf team in Japan in 2002, but I declined. So I was an active surfer in Japan in the early 2000s, and there was a colleague or a friend, I guess, who was putting together an amateur non-Japanese gaijin surf team. Sure. And it just didn't work out for me. I didn't really like the direction of it, so I said no.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well played.
Oh, that is, yeah, well played. Well played.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the way you, like Devin said, the way you intertwined all three of them there together.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, wait, before we go on, I just wanted, can I take a minute to tell you the story of number one?
Totally.
It was honestly one of the most crazy events of my life. I don't even really like soccer. I was, and especially at that time, I didn't like soccer, and I was with some friends, and I lived in Moscow for 8 months, and they said, "Oh, let's go to the soccer game. It's really great." So we go to the soccer stadium, and I'm just kind of there socially more than anything else. And this fans start rioting. Like they literally start rioting. It's two Moscow teams against each other. Like they're ripping out seats and throwing them. Like I've never seen anything like it. I was terrified. And when the match ended and there was like, police are beating people with batons, I stepped over some seats, but I stepped on the seats when I stepped over them.
Yeah.
And the police called me down and they detained me and they said, "You started the riot." And I was like, what? Like, I couldn't believe it. It was like some like Orwellian sort of situation. And the only way I got out was one of the Russian women I was with offered to give her phone number to the lead police officer.
Oh.
So she gave him a fake phone number, and then I was let go after 2 hours of standing in this circle with all these police.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's crazy. Devin, we were at that soccer game. We were in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil at Maracanã Stadium. That's huge stadium.
That's right.
Jam-packed. And it was the same, right? It was the same feeling. There wasn't a riot, but it was like the energy in there.
They had us for all the out of town teams play, or like guests or whatever, the people coming. They had a full different section for them. They're right. Like, yeah, you guys can't sit together. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, what's happening here? They don't. Like, yeah, they'll just kill each other. So they just split them up. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's pretty much what was going on.
If you Moscow. Come wearing that jersey, you sit in that over there.
Yeah, like, that's right. That's true.
That was pretty wild.
Oh man, but I actually going back to Japan for a second here. It's like I think it was really cool. Surfing was in the Olympics in Japan, and there was some pretty good sets, and just happened that there was a typhoon either coming through or just passed, so there was a nice swell, and so I was just like, that's really cool. I really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was one of the cool things about living in Japan. It was this funny thing, right? Is because most people in Japan were like, "Oh no, a typhoon's coming," but our whole surf posse was like, "Oh my God, yes, a typhoon's coming!" And obviously, typhoons do cause a lot of damage in Japan, so I want to be respectful of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we were pretty stoked when typhoons came through because that's when you got the really nice waves.
Yeah. That's great because we've always wanted to surf in Japan. Hey, Dev, because we go over there, a fair amount every 18 months because of Reiko's family. And we've been checking out spots, and I've been invited to guys, but then COVID hit and we had to cancel our trip because I had a whole surf thing planned.
Wow.
There, cool. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I connected with a guy that used to be Surf Rider Japan, and connected with him, and then he kind of set me up, and he was going to meet me and take me out. So yeah, but we couldn't do it. So.
Oh wow! Well, anytime you want to talk about that, I'm super into it. I mean, my wife is also from Japan, and we go there. It has been a while because of COVID, but we go. We were going every year for a while, and we've traveled all around surfing Japan, and it is amazing. It is amazing.
Okay, and, well, that's a date. We got to do that sometime. That's awesome. Cool. So, getting back here, I guess that was just super interesting stuff. Okay, so you're currently the CEO of Hollyhock, right? Which is amazing. I've been so fortunate to go a few times. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about Hollyhock? Because I'm sure people have heard about it, maybe on the fringe, but might not know exactly what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. So Hollyhock is this magical place, basically at the end of the road in the British Columbia wilderness. Next year will be our 40th anniversary. So Hollyhock has been in operation for 40 years, basically bringing people together to have conversations that matter. I was on a run recently, and I was thinking, Hollyhock at its best is a place of connection, creation, and action. And so it brings people together, diverse people who have like a shared interest in making the world better.
Yeah.
For conversations about how to do that. And I mean, so 40 years of doing that. And, I've done the math sometimes, and it's basically probably welcomed close to 100,000 people over that time. And the ripple effect of that work, the networks that have like grown out of that, it's sort of mind blowing. Everything from social entrepreneurship to politics to yoga to wellness. We're working on projects right now on psychedelics, we're engaged with Fairy Creek on climate. It's just a place where ideas come and flourish, and action builds out from that.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. I'd never heard of it. We were really fortunate back in 2010 to go deep into the Amazon rainforest with an incredible woman, Lynn Twist, and the Pachamama Alliance, Devin and myself and our whole family. Mm-hmm. And I was told I had a life-changing experience, say, in deep in the Amazon rainforest, and came back, and I was in Vancouver. And then this one of the people that came with us, her name is Bonnie Meyer, and she's from California. She came through and stopped at our house on her way to Hollyhock. And I'm like, oh, okay. You're like, stay for a night. And we had a nice reconnection and a chat. She went up to Hollyhock, says, yeah, I'm going to the Hollyhock. I'm like, what the heck is Hollyhock? And then she came back down after Hollyhock, and she stayed with us again before she went home. And she said, oh, Nigel, I think she'd been a few times before. Mm-hmm. And she says, it's just the most special place. You have to call this guy, Joel Solomon. Yeah. Him and his wife, they're kind of the Hollyhock people. And I'm like, what am I going to say? I'm going to call this guy out of the blue. So I did. I called Joel. Nice. And Joel's like, okay, great. He was in Gastown. So I went and we had a coffee or a beer or something at a little cafe. And he told me all about Hollyhock. And I told him about my life-changing experience in the Amazon. And he said, you got to come. We have a thing called Social Change Institute starting like next week up on Cortez Island. And I thought, okay, I'm in. So fine. I sign up and I go. And then I get a call the day before I get a call, and Joel's like, hey, Nigel, so glad you're coming. Could you do a little 5-minute talk? And I'm like, yeah, I could do a little 5-minute talk. No problem. So I show up there, and then next thing I know, people are coming up to me and like, hey, I'm your coach. I'm going to help you with your talk. I'm like, I got a 5-minute talk. Like, what's the big deal? Oh, no, you don't know, Joel. Like it was like a 90-minute panel discussion, full on. And it was absolutely enlightening. It was an incredible experience for me, and incredible. And I've been back multiple times. And I just got on a tangent, but I was there for the Social Change Institute, and they also have Social Venture Institute and all these other really, really cool programs. Hey?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think about, Nigel, is so many folks have had similar experiences at Hollyhock. And I think part of it is, I've really been reflecting on this through this COVID pandemic. Is these like wild places where we get to unplug, we get to be in relation with other people who grew up differently, but share similar aspirations. We get to be with those people in this beautiful wild place. Like, wild places in our world are decreasing quicker than they ever have. Yeah. And so these places where, there's 300-year-old cedars, there's beautiful, North Salish Sea waters. Yeah. There's, the density of Cortez Island. Like, one of the things I often talk about is the standard density, the standard subdivision is 10-acre lots. So we're not talking about a dense place, we're talking about a wild place where there's wolves and bears and cougars and humans imagining the world we all want. And those places, as the planet urbanizes so quickly, are few and far between.
Yeah, I gotta share another thing. I was there, and I came with Reiko, my wife. We came up a couple of summers ago, and we happened to hit it right at the right time for the bioluminescence, or the phosphorescence in the ocean. And so there was a big party. There was the big party next door at the Watson's house, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So after that, so it's past that, and we kind of go back and we go, let's go out. So the two of us go down, and you can't see it. It's so dark. Like you're like, it's so, there's no street lights. It's so dark. So we have a little light. We go down to the beach and we look out and we can't really see anything. And thought, let's just strip off and let's go into the ocean. And it's like midnight and we start swimming out, and it was just like, brrr. It was just absolutely incredible. Like everything was alight. Everything was lighting up. Every time you move your arm, your foot, and you swam and you're swimming out, and we're playing in the water at midnight like a bunch of kids. It was, like you said, it's these wild places around the planet that not a lot of people are unfortunately not getting to experience now, where it used to be the way everybody was out. Right. We're all out in the wild. Now it's very rare. So yeah. And the programs that you guys, I'm just actually going to throw, I've got, I guess I got to just do my slide sharing thing here. I'm just going to show some photos for our listeners. We're just throwing up a couple of photos here for you to see, and then we can describe it as well.
Yeah.
So the really cool thing is that, Hollyhock has these programs. So you can come for a couple of days or 3 days, 2 days, 5 days, and take all different types of courses on plants and plant medicines. And all these different types of things, to yoga, you name it. But they also have these gatherings, these conclaves, I guess you'd call them, such as the Social Venture Institute. The Social Venture Institute, really cool. Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit what Social SVI is about?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, so first and foremost, SVI, Social Venture Institute, has been running for, I think this is either its 26th or 27th year. And so if you go back 27 years ago, the idea that there was like a goal of business beyond serving the bottom line, that was a really innovative idea at that time. And so basically what Hollyhock did, and Joel Solomon is hugely responsible for this work.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
is brought together people who were seeing business as a tool for social change. How can we use this vehicle that is business, that drives, that creates capital? How can we use it for social purpose? And so at the beginning, it was just this small group of idealists who were good at business and said, we believe this can be a vehicle for social change. And so it was a community of support, really, a community of practice. But then over the years, that community of practice began to really influence the ecosystem, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, British Columbia. And now, 27 years later, it's almost like you can't find anyone who doesn't have some social purpose in business. You think about tech companies in Silicon Valley, you think about coffee roasters, you think about ice cream makers, they're all talking social purpose. And I believe that SVI, Joel, and all of this cohort of people who put this in the world, have a lot to be proud of. And so what SVI looks like now, and it's just about to start on September 22nd. It's totally sold out, and it sells out most years.
It does.
We have a lot of early stage startup, like founders who've got a great idea, who are starting to build their business, but are asking like, well, what can I do? What are the next steps? And then we have seasoned veterans who have run successful businesses. Maybe they've exited, maybe they're doing different things. We have amazing partners like Van City Credit Union that's been a partner for a very long time.
That's right. Yeah.
They often send a whole cohort of people to help and to offer support to new startup businesses. We've also brought in, one of the things we've been doing over the last few years is really trying to look at the cohort of people we bring in and say, where are the diverse voices? Where's diversity and inclusion in this movement? And so we're taking that very seriously. So we have a number of like Black-led businesses, Indigenous-led businesses.
Yeah.
And really, when I think about SVI in particular, is it serves both those purposes. Now, it is still a community of practice. It's still where you come together and you meet people and you realize like, wow, I'm not alone in this. Like, I actually believe business can be a tool for good. And there's other people like me. So it's a community of practice. It's a cohort. It's a tribe. It's a connection. And it's also deeply focused on skills and how do we move our businesses forward and continue to offer social returns, environmental returns.
Yeah, it's been, like you said, it just started, as they say, it started as a whisper so many years ago, and now it's in the forefront. Now it's paramount that I would say that almost every business has to have some sort of social component to it. I'm working doing some stuff with another group called STS. So there's Success to Significance, which basically is helping entrepreneurs leverage their businesses. And if they have an exit out of their business, they're helping them, if they're able to get more for selling their business, then a massive component of that will go to their philanthropic, whatever they're working with, right? Or whatever they want to work with. And so it's really become something extremely significant. And it was interesting because last night we were watching the debate, right? The Canadian federal election debate, and they had all the candidates up there. 5-10 years ago, people would be talking about, climate change, it's a bunch of BS. It's it's all global warming. They call it global warming. Let's change the name to whatever. Well, last night it's a key factor in the debate. That's right. I said to Reiko, I said they're all arguing like crazy. They're all getting at each other.
Yeah.
But the one thing is, it's on the board and it's a significant topic of discussion. And arguing about it is a good thing because it actually means something. It actually means that people are taking notice of it, and it actually is something that is where 10 years ago people would just shrug it off. That's absolutely yes. So we've come a long way in just a short period of time.
That's right.
I believe anyway. So I think
that's right. And I'll just add to that. Like, so, as Devin said at the beginning, so I've been working in social change for 20 years. And one of the questions of, I think, social change is like, how do you change the hearts and minds? How do you change the agenda? Right. And I think what you're talking about is exactly that. 10 years ago, when we had, Stephen Harper or Paul Martin on the stage, or even Jack Layton, like you're right. The conversation about climate change, it wasn't the top issue. Whereas last night they had 5 issues and it was one of them, as was reconciliation.
Reconciliation. Exactly.
That is clear evidence of social movement, right?
Yes.
And so getting down to it, it's like, how do you create social movement? And it's what we've done at SVI. It's persistence. Exactly. It's 27 years. I think we live in a society right now, like our social media society, where we want to believe things happen like that. You put something up and it happens. But real change, like deep change that moves people, that moves countries, that moves policy, takes a long time, a very long time. And it's not a sexy thing to say, and I'm 46. When I was a younger man, I didn't like it either. But, people say to me often, it's like, and I think this, I've never worked for an organization that was more than 5 years old. I worked for startups before I worked at Hollyhock. Hollyhock is 40 years old. Yeah. And what people like often impart to me, Peter, you're pushing the rock up the hill. You'll do your part and then you'll move and someone else will continue to push the rock up the hill. And that's a hard thing for like a driven Enneagram 3 like me to hear, but it's real. And that's how social change happens. It's things like SVI running for 27 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's just, it's just come so far, and the consciousness of, even as even older generations, but especially the younger, I'm really, really impressed. When I was at SCI, Social Change Institute, it was mostly, I was probably one of the oldest people there, and just sitting and listening to the passion of the young people. And in all these, there were people from Greenpeace, they were from all walks of life, all over, I think all over the planet. And I was really, really, really inspired by that. So, as an older person, it's, is there going to be any change? But seeing the youth, like I say it all the time, people always complain about the youth are lazy and whatnot, blah, 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 blah. It's like happened every generation. It's always like that.
Yeah.
But these guys are so switched on. And I think, the positive side of social media is that they're able to connect and learn so much from each other, as long as it's, there is the goofy stuff on the outside, but if we can get through the chaff.
Yeah.
And hey, what do you think, Dev? Is that
yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it's like we have pretty much all the information you need at your fingertips. It's hard to not be well-ish educated to a certain extent, right? But then it's like so many people who live in, Vancouver or Greater Vancouver. It's like we have so much privilege that you have to make a difference. There's just no other way of going about it, right? Like there's people who live all around the world, as we know from traveling.
Yes.
You can't think about, climate change because they're just trying to feed their 4 kids and they're just trying to, work their butts off every day. But here we have the privilege. So it's like what Jamie says. So we have the responsibility to do something and make a difference. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right with the youth that, we surround ourselves with, or that you met out of our friends or people going to Hollyhock, absolutely switched on and ready to go and make a difference. They are the future there. So yeah.
Devin, can I pick up on something in that? So like, it's really interesting, this concept of privilege and how we, like, what is our role in that? And we spent a lot of time at Hollyhock thinking about that and understanding our own privilege and what our responsibility is, So it's interesting. So I grew up, as we were talking before we started, I grew up in Richmond, and I grew up in a lower middle class single parent family. And so for me, like, I hear people talk about like, oh, money is an energy and this type of thing, which like I totally get, sitting where I am now. But when I was young, like money wasn't an energy. Money was like how we got food, and there's a lot of people who live in that reality, right? Like across this planet, as you just mentioned, I mean, literally billions of people live day to day. And when you think about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You think about, that level of like security, food, safety. And there's a lot of people who, even in our society, very much in our society, who don't have that bottom layer covered, we even saw some of that in the debate last night by that brave Indigenous man who asked the question about 150 years of history.
That's right.
And so, but here's the trick. And this is like, I've worked with a lot of like different consultants, Indigenous consultants, and they're like, Peter, like, you're like a privileged middle-class white man. You don't get to pull out. You don't get to just go do your thing. You got to actually use your privilege to make it better. And I think that that's really like how we think about the work we're doing at Hollyhock is like, there are lots of things there's lots of work to do on Hollyhock as an organization, but the most important thing is that we keep doing what we're doing. We build more accessibility into it. We invite more voices into the conversation for exactly the reason you both were just talking about. 2 weeks ago, I was up at Cortez spending a week with this group of young climate activists who are looking to start a new national organization. And let me tell you, like, I had 4 dinners with them in a row. And those dinners were some of the most inspiring moments I have had in the last decade. Because it was this group of 5 young climate activists who knew what they were doing was audacious. They knew it was crazy. They knew it was bold, and yet they persevered. And they're 20 years younger than me. And, you know, at my age, 46, it's like, it's really easy to go, oh, well, that'll never happen. But that's not what young people do.
Right.
And thank God for that, right? That's not what young people do.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, I know. It's that's what makes change. You know, it's the young. You know, it's the people. You know, we look back and you look back for the archives, and it's the people that, you know, protesting the Vietnam War, or it's the young. It's the young people out there. You know, just kind of pushing it along, and then we get to hear. You know, and so change, you know, does happen. It takes time, but it does happen. So yeah, right. Very, very, and so yeah, I mean, Hollyhock's got some really amazing kind of conclave type groups, from SVI to various other ones. But then we'll talk about some of the courses and things, because people can come up there for several days, from, I don't know, 3 to 5 days or whatever it is, and take some cool courses. And I have to bring this up here, is Paul Stamets and mycology and mushrooms, and absolutely, you know, fascinating. And you mentioned that you had dinner with him or something there, Peter? Like,
I was just, we were just at his house a couple of weeks ago, just talking about different things. I mean, what I'll say about Paul Stamets is he's an absolute genius. He's one of these people you meet, you see talk, and he's one of those like next level humans, you know, where he is. They're talking and you're like, wow, like this is one of the smartest, most like just thinkers I've ever met. And that's sort of how I've always felt when I've had the honor and privilege of talking to Paul. So I'll say a couple of things about Paul's programs. So Paul's programs are our biggest sellers. They are sold out multiple years in advance. Like, I think he's got some ridiculous wait list. Paul's been coming to Hollyhock since 1988. I just learned that this summer. So way before he was the superstar that he is now. He was a guy who he calls them forays. He just loved the forays in the Cortez forest, and you know, so I've actually never been in the program, but it's so sold out. But I have seen them come back from their forays, and it is remarkable. Like, they'll have hundreds of mushrooms on tables, and they're classifying them. And we are just so lucky to have Paul in our Hollyhock community. He's a tremendous supporter of Hollyhock. He's just generous with his time, and he's a great.
And his film is on, I think it's on Netflix, isn't it? Is it the documentary that he does? It's called I can never get
Fantastic Fungi.
Fantastic Fungi, or Fungi, or Fungi. Fantastic Fungi. Yeah. You can watch it. I've watched it multiple times. Reiko and I sit down there, and it's mind bending, enlightening. And but then Devin, you told me like a year ago, he said, Dad, you got to watch or listen to
the Joe Rogan podcast that he's on. There's some stuff in there, man.
It's like it's a 3-hour podcast. I said, Devin, I'm not listening to a 3-hour podcast. I was down in the gym. Next thing I know, I'm totally exhausted because I've been working over 3 hours. But it's just like, I gotta stop. I can't, you know. And it was 3 hours, and it was absolutely just gripping and funny. And you know, I don't think I'd be climbing.
Some of those 3-hour Joe Rogan ones you skip ahead, but that one, it's like every minute you're like, what? Like, wait a second, what?
Well, one of the best ones. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
So I remember the first time I met Paul Stamets was my first year at Hollyhock 2017, and I had heard, you know, I was very new, like I was 2 months in, and everyone was really excited about this program that was coming, Paul Stamets, and I didn't really know who he was, so I sort of Googled around. I was like, wow, this guy seems really interesting. And so he's doing his program, and you know, I sort of see him here and there, and then he does a presenter evening. So that's one of the things we do for our programs is we'll have the program, and you're registered and you're staying at Hollyhock, but then every program we do a community community invitational presentery thing. And so, and so we invite the whole Cortez community, and, typically we'd have 40 or 50 people. It'd be pretty cool, but it wouldn't be, and all of a sudden it's that night, and it's in October, which is kind of a quiet time on Cortez.
Sure.
And the entire lodge is full to the rafters. I mean, this is pre-COVID, of course, full to the rafters, pushing out the sides. People are standing on the deck, and I'm like, who is this person? And so anyways, I introduced Paul, and he gets up and he's talking. And I remember one of the things he said, and I've never forgotten it. It blew my mind. And he maybe, I'm sure he says it lots of other places, but he basically said that mushrooms showed up in the historical record before humans, the fossil record. And so we are the ancestors of mushrooms. Yes. That just kind of blew my mind. And I've never, I never have looked at a mushroom in the same way.
Yeah. It's because in the film, it starts out, I think it's a voice, and it's an act. I can't remember her name, the actress that does the voiceover. But she says, "We were here well before you.
Yes.
And we will be here well after you."
That's right.
And I was just like, oh my God.
That's right.
Yeah. And the way, we separate, it's incredible. And the only thing that I wouldn't do is climb a tree in a lightning storm. Right. That's kind of what I'm like. You're completely insane. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, then it cured his stutter, right?
Yes.
It cured his stutter.
So that part of that, I was just like, well, that's pretty intense.
Yeah. His personal story and his absolute dedication to his work is what makes him is what gives him the power and integrity that he has. He's just he's so authentic in his work, and he's wonderful.
Reiko and I, because the lockdown and COVID, we were doing lots of hikes, and then October, which is coming up, is mushroom, kind of lots of funky mushrooms come out. And I've never been into mushrooms, and we started hiking around Whistler, and we'd find the Japanese pine mushrooms.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, we found our little stashes, and it's all secret. And we dig away, and we bring them. Reiko's cutting them up, and we're just beautiful. And so we got into mushrooms. We got mushroom books, and then listening to Paul Stamets, and then at Creekside Health, who's one of our sponsors here at Whistler, I have an acupuncture therapist there, Dr. Dom, and she introduced us to this whole slew of mushrooms. So mushroom powder. So every morning, we've been for a year, I've been having cordyceps mushrooms, lion's mane, reishi, just a little tiny little bit in my coffee every morning, and it's just like this. It's incredible. And if you don't like coffee, you could have it in hot chocolate or whatever. It's really, really, it's great. It's great stuff.
Yeah. And Paul's company, Host Defense and Fungi Perfecti, I think it's called, has all sorts of products like that.
Yes,
it's funny, Nigel. I make this super oatmeal in the morning, and I put a little bit of lion's mane in it too for help with productivity.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, lion's mane's a big one. They're all just we could go on for hours about the mushrooms and everything, because it's just been so cool. And that's some of the cool things that during COVID, I mean, just the learning, the stuff that you've been kind of I'm looking into and slowing down and researching and learning about mushrooms and learning about, we've been doing the Wim Hof ice. Devin's got me to the Wim Hof ice baths every day. And I mean, we just gone kind of off the,
That's amazing.
That's a whole different, that's a whole different thing. And then, so then another program is another really good friend of ours is Jamie Alvarez Acosta. He's a shaman, and he's there, and I think he's there next week. And he's doing a whole session on Andean wisdom teachings, and absolutely incredible, fascinating, beautiful man, and his partner Star, just an incredible couple. With their little guy Sammy, and incredible. Devin's gone multiple times with Jamie to Peru. Hey, I've gone once with him to Peru with Reiko, and it's incredible. So his story is really, really incredible. But one of the most incredible things of Hollyhock is that everybody would have to agree is the garden, and this photograph doesn't even do it justice.
Yeah, let me talk about the garden just for a sec.
Yeah.
So when in 2018, my second year at Hollyhock, so as you know, as we talked about at the beginning, I studied Soviet history, but I also like just love history. And so I got really into what is the history of this land. Some of that was in relation to the Klahoose First Nation and some advice I was getting from Indigenous consultants to really get a sense of this land.
Yeah.
And so I found out that the land was transferred as the British Columbia government was doing that in 1906. And it was 169 acres for $169. And so the idea was, what the British Columbia government was trying to do, what the Canadian government was trying to do was to, to give this land away so that it could be farmed and therefore push Indigenous people out. And so what we know about this land is that from about 1920, there has been a farm here. Or the better way of saying it probably is the land has been cultivated. Mm-hmm. In 1969, it was purchased by a group of visionaries for the Cold Mountain Institute, and it had a garden. And then in 1982, the founders of Hollyhock purchased it. And since 1982, over the last 40 years, this garden has grown to about 1 acre. And it is a beautiful centerpiece to the campus. It's full of beautiful flowers. We grow tons of food there. And in fact, in COVID, one of the things I'm most proud of in my tenure so far is that in COVID, the first year, 2020, we had to not welcome back a huge number of our seasonal staff because we canceled all our programs.
Yeah.
And so we converted a large part of the garden to food production. And every week we would invite our laid off staff to come and have like a organic garden basket of fresh, healthy food. Wow. And it was tremendous. It was tremendous for those staff. It was tremendous for the staff who were providing it. Mm-hmm. And it was a great, connector for us with the community. But yeah, I mean, the garden, the life that's in the garden is a centerpiece. There's bees, there's, snakes, there's all sorts of things running through that garden. But I mean, I often see people like, I have a word for it, but it's often like people in the garden just totally blissed out. Like they're losing their minds in the garden because there's some flower they can't believe is actually in front of them.
I know when I took, when Reiko and I went up there, she'd come for the first time. I said, you got to see this garden. You got to see this garden. She's like, okay. So she comes out and is just like, wow, because her father was a gardener, like a Japanese gardener, like he was a gardener. So she knows a lot about, plants and it was just like mind boggling. So we just wandered and, through it, just hung out in this incredible garden. I mean, Dev's a big gardener. He loves gardening. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just an incredible, and just the setting and, right on the beach, and you could go swimming, and then the oysters. Oh, talk about the oysters. They're pretty crazy.
Cortez well. It's oysters. So oyster barbecue once a week. Yeah.
That oyster barbecue. And, there's all sorts of sessions and things. I think that's Reiko actually walking on the beach there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Nice. And that's us just before we left. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So, yeah, there we go. We're back. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. It's just an incredible spot of sharing and learning. And I was totally blown away on, the people that come from all over the world. And it's a global center for sharing, social change, social ideas. It's just a really, really powerful place. I came home because it was funny. I was at a business conclave meeting here in Vancouver just before I went to, I think, Hollyhock for the first time. And I was in this thing. It was like business, go, doing all this. Then I went to Hollyhock and I was just like, I came back and I was like, wow, these people are on a completely different level. Like they kind of get it. Like it's hard to explain, like the business, like you're biting and scratching to survive and, dealing with these. And then you go and you spend time with people that are doing things for a different reason and the right reason. It was really special. It was really special. And it really kind of shifted me a little bit again too. Yeah. Sorry, Dev, did you have a question there?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say,
yeah,
just on that, Nigel, that
yeah,
we hear that so often from
you
folks.
do, eh? Yeah.
And I just want to say, like, so at the heart of Hollyhock is this belief that, like, we are all connected. There's like a deep interdependence, you know, and some of that comes across, you know, in mycelium networks. There's so many metaphors you could use for it.
Sure.
But so one of the things we've really focused on in the last few years is this concept of right relations. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean to be in right relations with ourselves, with each other, and with the natural world? But understanding that those things, you can't separate them. If I'm not in right relations with myself, it's going to be very hard for me to be in right relations with you two. Mm-hmm. And if we're not in right relations, like if we're not doing business or the way we interact in right relations, it's going to be very hard for us to be in right relations with the natural world. And so at the heart of that is this like concept of disconnection. And I think that like since the Industrial Revolution, we have been in deep disconnection with the natural world. Is really easy to see, right? Climate change. But then you look at how we are in business or how we are in relation, and we have this like zero-sum game. Like it's sort of like, oh, well, I'll get the thing before Nigel gets the thing, but then I'll just be friendly with Nigel. But we know that doesn't work. Like we all know it in our bones, that doesn't work. Like look at the circumstances we're in. Yeah. And then the next step is like, what does it mean to be in right relations with oneself, right? Like what is our experience? And we're not taught that, you know, we're not taught to be like, how am I experiencing this moment? What's happening in my body? How am I breathing? What are my thoughts doing? Mm-hmm. And so for us, it's like the goal we have through all the programs, whether it's Jamie's, whether it's Paul Stamets, whether it's SVI, whether, you know, it's climate work, is presencing our experience with others, and our experience with the natural world. And our theory of change is that if we can do that for enough people, then we can create the world we want to be, the world we want, because we will be the humans we want to be.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, it's really powerful. And it's, you know, what you said there is, it's kind of what, like I said, what happened to me. If I just reflecting a bit here, that I go back to 2010, I had a major revelation in 2010, and I was like, I'd always been in the business world as an entrepreneur, go, and flying all over the world and just fighting. Yeah. Fighting's a good word. Like you're just fighting, you know, all the time to survive and just, you know, trying to tread water and stay afloat. Right. But then, you know, I go to this business conclave of Boston it's MIT. It's called Gathering of Titans. And I was pretty much ready to leave. I pretty much kind of had enough of kind of everything. And then this lady, actually two people, came into the room. One was Brother David, which is a Benedictine monk, he talks about gratefulness. Incredible man. I think he just turned 95. And then Lynn Twist, who founded the Pachamama Alliance, or co-founded the Pachamama Alliance, and ran the Hunger Project globally for you. Like incredible one. But she invited us to go deep into the Amazon rainforest, like I mentioned earlier, with our family. And then I had a life-changing experience. We did a bit of an ayahuasca ceremony with the indigenous Ashwar people, and came back. And when I stepped back into Vancouver, I was a different person. But the connection with Joel, because Bonnie Meyer. So what happened the next, we're in 2021. So 11 years ago, what's happened is that those little connections through Bonnie, through Joel, I've stepped my toe into a different world. And that different world has opened me up to meeting so many absolutely incredible, amazing people that are really making a difference in our world. As opposed to before 2010, it was the business, go, you know, survival. And then there was a big shift. And just connect. But once I stepped over, my energy ball, or whatever you want to call it, is just gone exponentially with the connections of people. Like you said, you want to be, with the people that you kind of can connect with that are doing, and it's just gone. I mean, I've just been so fortunate to meet so many amazing people doing incredible things for the right reason around the planet to help make our world a better place. Make our world a better place for everything and all life. And what you guys are doing really, it was one of the cogs that started that whole thing off for myself personally, coming to Hollyhock and asked by Joel to stand up and chat. And then everything else that's kind of trickled down from that, and the connections around the world out of Hollyhock and out of the Pachamama Alliance and out of all these other groups that I've been connected with. My life's totally changed. And I would say our whole family's life has totally changed because of those first little steps. So I want to thank all you guys at Hollyhock for, awakening me to a lot of really cool stuff. So, yeah.
It's really beautiful, man. I think what is like really, what I find like so beautiful about that story is your willingness to wake, I think that's I think the way you describe that, pre 2010, that like business scratching, right, is like, there's so many of us, right? Like, and it's like this remembrance, right? Like we have to remember it all the time, because that can easily be our default. It's like, we go to the good schools, we get the job, we get the house, and then you're like, wait a sec, why do I feel spiritually empty? And so then you have an epiphany. But then it's like, how do you hold? And that, I have these little sticky notes on my computer, and one of them just says persist, and the other one says remember. And it's like, how do we continue to hold and remember? And I think, like, Nigel, like from what I know of you, like you do that really well. And I've always appreciated deeply how integrated your family is into the things you're all doing together. It's very cool. It's very inspiring to me as like a father as well.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it was, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was, a lot of work. But what you said, the awakening part, that awakening, it's almost what Lynn Twist and what the Shuar people say is, awaken the us from the dream of our modern world, because we're in this modern world, and to awaken from it, and to see what's really important, right? So, I mean, man, we could go off and talk about all sorts of things, how COVID's affected you, whatever, but I think that we've this has been awesome. This has been really good. Dev, you got any questions there for Peter, or Peter got any?
So I'm just listening, taking it all in, basically.
Yeah. Well, no, I would just say thank you to both of you for giving me the opportunity. I mean, it's just lovely to be in conversation with you this morning. It's as I was saying before we started, I was really looking forward to this because I knew like both of you are pretty deep thinkers, and I was excited to have the opportunity to talk this through with you. And let's do it again, because you're right. There's so many things
there's so many rabbit holes we can go down.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do it again.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. No, Peter, really, really great. Thank you so much. And I just, love to get together personally one of these days again. Which I guess we probably could, because we're
not that far away.
We're not that far away. Yeah. You just got to catch that ferry over and we're good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to know more about Peter and Hollyhock, we will put the links in the description of the video. Thank you again for all of our sponsors for making this video happen. Other than that, thank you so much, Peter, for being on the show. And we'll definitely have to have you back. It was a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, both of you.
Awesome.
Oh, thanks, Pete.